Welcome to the Believe, Be Real, Be Bold podcast for authentic dating in Denver. My name is Dave Glazer, your host and facilitator, where each week we bring expert guests to come share their knowledge, tools, and tips so that we can show up as our most authentic self. Hey guys, welcome back to the Believe, Be Real, Be Bold podcast. I'm ecstatic to catch up with one of our most popular guests of all time, Renee Slansky. How are you today?
I'm good. I've had a massive day of clients. It's been a massive week, actually. Clients out of the year. So it's always busy this time of the year. It's when a lot of people have momentum. It's when I have momentum. So it's been, really good.
Awesome. So you're originally from Australia, and the last time that we talked, you were in Greece, but neither of those are the case anymore. Where in the world are you?
Yes, so we are currently in France, and then we will be moving back to Greece in a few months. So I'll be back in the sunnier part of Europe, which will be really nice. We're actually having our wedding in Greece this year as well. So it'll be easy to be able to plan everything when I'm over there. But I haven't been back to Australia now for a year and a half, which went so quick I didn't even realize. But we're planning on going back to Australia this year for a visit if we can.
Well, congratulations on the wedding. I don't believe that you had picked a date the last time we talked, or maybe it just didn't come up.
No, we hadn't. We'd been putting it off, and we just basically didn't have time. And now we've finally we've chosen a month, and we've chosen a roundabout date. We're just searching for a venue, but it's going to be September this year. So that'll come before we know it. Like every year, I feel as an adult, like it just goes fast, and it's kind of like, oh my goodness, is time getting quicker? I don't know if it's like that for anybody else. I'm packed, and we're just snowballing through every year going, oh my goodness, like where's this time going?
I know exactly how you feel. It's like the month between November or Thanksgiving and Christmas was just like, where did that go?
Totally. Happens every time, yet we still act so surprised each time.
Yeah. So I remember the last time that we talked, I mentioned that I was going to be in Greece in September.
Oh, so this was obviously last year. So did you come to Greece in September then?
Nope. The last time that we talked about it was in September, and I'm planning a year out vacation with my daughter.
Awesome. Okay.
For her 18th and her high school graduation and my 40th.
Exciting. Well, you know what? September is the best time to visit Greece if anybody's out there, because it's out of peak season, so the prices are a bit cheaper. There's not as many tourists, but the weather is amazing. It's not too hot, but it's still like balmy nights. It's still really sunny during the day. Honestly, that's also why we're getting married in September, because it's just like the most ideal time of the year.
Okay, I'll try not to crash the wedding. I do have a bad habit.
And we pop it out of the bushes with your microphone. No, but seriously, I'll tell you everywhere that you need to go if you don't have an itinerary, because I think because we lived there for like a year and a half, like we kind of know the ins and outs. We haven't done all the islands, but we know enough to be able to say, okay, try this. It's not on the map. It's not what tourists do, but it's actually really cool. Or go eat here, or, you have to see this. We've had so many friends visit us as well, so we've done all the touristy things as well.
Awesome. I'd really appreciate that. That's awesome. The last time we talked, we were talking about being your authentic self doesn't always necessarily help you in showing up and building attraction in a dating partner. And what we kind of determined in our conversation, if you guys haven't listened to Renee's episode before, please scroll all the way back down. It's about a year ago. But we focused on self-awareness as a key to authenticity. And what have you learned since our last conversation that would kind of either dispel that truth or reinforce it?
I think that self-awareness is really freeing, because what it does is it allows you to honor yourself a bit more, as well as have clarity about situations, because you're coming from a place of knowledge and wisdom rather than a place of lack, whether that's lack of love education, lack of confidence, or if you've got this fear that, you feel that you have to control everything, you've got no idea why you're getting a certain outcome. So it gives you that sense of control because you are making more educated decisions. And more than anything, it actually produces congruency in your brain. Now, congruency in your brain is where what you do and what you think aligns with each other. And when it aligns with each other, your brain doesn't stress as much, which obviously means you have more peace, and then you usually produce better results in your dating life. And the reason why so many people out there are really struggling with dating is not only because you have maybe lack of self-awareness of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you do on default, okay? But it's also because maybe you think, well, I'm doing this, but then your actions are doing something completely different. And so then that's producing that stress because it's producing incongruency. And that's when you start to get anxiety. And then anxiety builds on top of anxiety, on top of anxiety, and becomes a snowballing effect. And that's where we just feel like we don't get anywhere with our love life. I think that self-awareness has almost become this saturated term, to be honest, out there. It's almost like the whole woke thing, more about accountability. Taking like accountability for what your actions are and also being educated on what you're doing in the first place. And that's why it's really good to have an outside perspective, whether it's a therapist, whether it is a book that you read that just like gives you that knowledge, whether it's a dating coach. The biggest thing that any of my clients that come to me find is that their level of awareness about why they're in this position and why they're struggling, which then helps them understand how they can break that cycle, is life-changing for them. Because it's almost like when you've reached that new level of self-awareness, you can't go back to the old you because you're just too aware of what you're doing now.
Yeah, the light switch comes on, and I've experienced that multiple times in different incremental levels, like just keep climbing a ladder of deeper self-awareness. And it kind of, for you, you were saying about the snowball effect into the anxiousness. And for me, it snowballs into just overanalyzing my own thoughts. And how I kind of got around that recently is went out on a date and she says, Dave, had a great time. You're amazing. It's not the right time for me. Okay, let's be friends. That sounds great. And I actually took a bold step forward for myself and said, hey, let me ask you specifically for some feedback. Did my actions match my words? And she was happy to answer that because she's in school for counseling. So she understands the perspective and she gave me honest feedback. And I was really grateful for the opportunity to even level up just a little bit more in self-awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because we're always evolving as a person, we never fully arrive. We never just get to the point where, okay, we know everything, we are everything, because we're always going to be changing. We're always going to be growing. Circumstances are going to be changing and growing us as well. I think for people out there, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what is the story that you're telling yourself? Does this story serve me? And who do I want to be and how do I want to be received? And they're pretty much the key sort of questions that you can be asking yourself, which helps keep you authentic in the most positive way possible. And if the story that you're telling yourself is, oh, I'm not dateable, I'm not lovable, I'm not this, this, and that, then chances are you're going to reflect that sort of behavior in the relationships that you get involved in, which will be toxic or self-sabotaging, or you'll do self-sabotaging habits. And then that's when you go, okay, well, this is the story I'm telling myself because it's making me miserable, for example. Then you might go, okay, if you go on a date, like you did, Dave, who do I want to be on this date? Do I want to be insecure, over analyzing, overthinking Dave? Or do I want to be Dave that is confident? Do I want to be Dave that brings the best version of myself? We always have a choice, and our choices shape our life and they shape our relationships. Now, the awesome thing is that you then decide, when you decide who you want to be, you also help shape how do I want to be received, okay? Because you walk in there with that certainty. Now, what we can't control is the outcome. We may influence the outcome, but we can't control it because we can't control what other people are doing. But that shouldn't be the goal. Because I think another big thing that I learned is there's rejection in life, but rejection doesn't necessarily mean that we suck at something. Rejection is feedback. And so if we can look at rejection as a way to actually learn from this maybe learn more about ourselves. And the fact that you asked her, can I just ask you a question, is a great way to actually take that situation and take that rejection and turn it into something that is actually going to grow you as a person and set you up for the next date. And by default, if you are taking something and then using it as a stepping stone for the next thing and the next thing, you start to get that progress in your love life without just being stuck in that pain of rejection.
Mm-hmm. Exactly why I approached the opportunity to adjust my mindset from the fear of rejection or a rejection at all into an opportunity to advance my self-confidence and advance my understanding of myself. Just checking my internet here really quick. And I'm so glad that you clarified the difference between being who you are and how you want to be received, because of that controlling the outcome is a very bad habit that some of our community members actually come to me with this challenge, and they say, Dave, I'm not showing up, I'm not showing up, I'm not showing up. Okay, well, who do you want to be first? And then the reflection or the reception will be more closely authentic to that. So thank you very much for clarifying.
Yeah, no, I think it's something that sometimes you need people to just make it really simple for you to realize, okay, well, it's not just me for starters, other people are struggling with this. And we live in a time where I think we have information overload and we have option overload. And so that's why people get confused with what's real authentic mean and how does this mean to do and what am I supposed to do on this day and la la la. And that's where we start to just like get overwhelmed by everything. So if we can just keep it simple, it's like, okay, well, who do you want to be and how do you want to be received, and make those two things align again to produce that congruency, you're going to have less stress. And again, it's not about the outcomes, it's about honoring you, being true to you. Because if you want to set yourself up to fall in love with someone that is right for you, you're going to be closer to be able to make that a reality if you come as you, even if you're not exactly who you want to be. And the reason why everyone wants to control the outcome is because we have this fear, the fear that what if we miss out on love? What if we die alone? We crave certainty. We crave security. It's one of the 6 human fundamental needs, is to have that certainty about a situation. Hence, we think, well, if I do this, I've got more likely an outcome of having certainty about that. But that action might not necessarily be congruent with who you are as a person. And that's where we get stressed out, and then we don't really get the result we want, or we do, but then we're not happy with it, and all just makes it really muddled.
And that brings me to my next train of thought is how do women self-sabotage themselves?
How much time do we have?
We've got all day if you do too.
Okay, I must say probably there's 2 major ways that women self-sabotage. The first one is they get too focused on the commitment rather than the person behind the commitment. Again, that's like they focus on the outcome. I want marriage. I want the security of a relationship. I want a man to love me. And they become obsessed with the end result instead of the person behind the result. They want the marriage, but it's like, well, who are you actually marrying here? They need to understand that character has to come before commitment. And so what girls do is they have a great date, and then they assume that off that great date and the minuscule amount that they might know about someone, that they can work out if that's going to be their husband. So they set themselves up for this unrealistic expectation based off the small amount of information they know, or all of a sudden some red flags pop out and they're like, oh, but no, like he was great for me. I knew he was this, this, and this. And it's like, well, no, you didn't know who he was. You're starting to work out who he is now. You've just attached an expectation what you want later on down the track. So that's what I see a lot of women do. And the second thing women do is they're searching for validation within men without first realizing that you have to be able to give that to yourself first. And it's something that I used to do all the time. And everyone was like, oh, but you're so beautiful. You can have any man you want. You're a model. And I couldn't keep a man if I paid him to. Like, I had men chase me, but I could never have a man commit to me because I was constantly assuming then I had to be this person who I thought they wanted me to do in order to love me, because I didn't know how to love me. And so women chase men. They start initiating, which is okay, but then that turns into insisting and chasing, and then they scare these men away, because they haven't reached of love for yourself first. Because the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship in your life. So I'd have to say that those are probably the two major ways that women self-sabotage.
Mm-hmm. And thank you so very much for sharing that and clarifying that. It's been a burning thought in my mind. And there's a difference between seeking, let's see if I phrase this correctly, seeking affirmation. There's an affirmation and a validation difference when we're dating and when we're speaking to other people. I'm not seeking validation from my partner because I give it to myself through things that I believe are part of my being. Like jujitsu is a spiritual journey for me, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual for me. So that's where I'm gaining my self-worth, is in a journey like that. There's no way that a woman could give me that validation in the same way. So I can't seek it from somebody else externally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think that, again, this comes back to self-awareness. If you're aware of what your struggles are or what your fears are, you're more likely able to then put decisions and actions into place that will guard you from falling into traps that are just going to magnify that fear. For example, if you have a fear of rejection, a trap would be dating a guy that's openly a player and is going to reject you, right? So if you're aware of these sort of things, then you can prevent yourself from putting yourself in these situations that are just going to make those fears a reality. Like we kind of self-prophesize it over ourselves. Someone should only ever add to your life. I think that we're not created to be alone, that it is totally normal to want to love and be loved. And I think we need to own that decision. I think women need to stop apologizing for wanting a man and start owning it, because you've been created with that desire. Like if we were meant to be alone, there'd be one human on the earth and that's it. We created for relationships. Our body and our brains are scientifically, biologically wired for relationships, okay? So it's normal that we're seeking out companionship and love, and why we nurture, and, you know, why men are attracted to women that nurture. Like it's this whole kind of ecosystem and balance that we have. But the difference is if you're thinking that a relationship is going to be your be all and end all means to your happiness and your worth, you're playing a very high risk game of heartache, because you're essentially putting your value in someone else's pocket and saying, well, you're in control of that. Now, what this does is two things. It either goes one way or the other. It either puts you in a place where people then take advantage of that, and they mistreat you and they abuse you, and it becomes a really toxic relationship or narcissistic sort of relationship. And because you assume that attention from them equals validation for you, you're always trying to. So there's always lots of drama usually involved in those sort of relationships. The other thing that you can do, and I've done both of these, total expert in what not to do. The other thing that you can do is you can meet an amazing man, okay, or an amazing woman, but then put them on a pedestal. And by putting them on a pedestal, you're essentially saying, okay, well, they add to my life, awesome, but all of a sudden I'm going to make them everything about my life. And you start to lose your own identity in that relationship, because you assume that you have to keep this person and be whoever you need to be to keep this person, because you finally found somebody that does treat you right. And that usually ends quite bad as well. They come tumbling off the pedestal and you realize that they are human like the rest of us, or you end up pushing them away because they lose respect for you because you're not the same person that they meant, or you're not your own person, and they then feel responsible for you all the time, and you actually become a drain. So women either end up chasing the bad guys, or they end up pushing them because they haven't learned how to give themselves that worthiness and balance outside of men in the first place.
I love the way that you put that, because it's so simple to understand. But when we're in it, when we're dating somebody, we can't see those things. And no matter how much self-awareness we have, we might be able to say, look at the relationship the day after it ends and understand where we made mistakes. But like in that moment, there's no deciphering the code that is our pre-programmed mindset. So,
I think there can be if you have the right level of self-awareness. I think that, true self-awareness plus love education combined is really something that helps you go, okay, I'm doing something wrong. Thing that my girls find happens when they work with me is literally they catch themselves going, it's almost like you step outside yourself and you go, oh, that's a red flag. And I was about to engage in that red flag. But now that I'm aware and I know that's one of my sore points and I know that it's not right, I'm no longer going to do this. So I think that obviously you can learn a lot after a relationship, but this is what people have in their mind. I have to go through heartache to finally learn how not to hurt. What if you could just skip majority of that heartache? Because you can, like if you know, okay, well, I'm going to ride a bicycle and I'm just going to throw myself on it and I'm going to fall off and fall off and fall off and fall off, okay? It's going to be a really painful experience. Eventually, you might get there, okay? As opposed to actually going, I'm going to go on a bicycle. I'm first going to learn about balance. I'm going to then put training wheels on. I'm going to take it slowly. And what you're doing is you may have one or two falls, but it's not going to be the same as if someone's just kind of thrown themselves in the deep end, just kind of fingers crossed, hoping for the best. Taking educated decisions as well as having that level of self-awareness does actually help minimize heartache, because you aren't just like shooting in the dark here. You've got some sort of strategy. And I think, and I see it with my girls and I see it with even my men that I work with and myself, that sometimes you can be fully aware of what you're doing. The difference is, are you choosing to do something about that awareness? I remember when I first started dating Stan, and I had completely gone, done a big turnaround. I'd worked on myself. I'd found myself. I fell in love with myself for the first time in my life. I said no to toxic men. And then the man that I dreamed of walked into my life. And I remember in the first couple of weeks of dating him, I started to self-sabotage. And I literally caught myself doing it. I was like, ooh, in this moment, it's like I stepped out of myself, even though I was still yelling at him, going, right now I'm self-sabotaging. And what I did was I stopped. I then took accountability and responsibility for it. And I explained to him, okay, well, that's the old me coming out. Because he's like, who's this woman, sort of thing. And I was like, okay, well, look, this is me and this. So I think that the awareness can be there if you've done the right work. But again, it comes down to the choice. What am I going to do with that awareness? Am I actually going to use it to stop myself right now, instead of just repeating a pattern? Or am I just going to like do what I've always done, which will probably end up getting the same result?
Right. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting different results.
Yeah, totally.
And how we got onto this train of thought is the difference between affirmation and validation. And in a video of yours I was watching, I'm going to put this video in the show notes below and in the blog post so that people can watch it, because it was such a valuable education for me. Is you were encouraging people to build attraction in the relationship by occasionally affirming your partner, giving them praise for the small things, or definitely pointing out and noticing when he opened the door, or when he found success in work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not necessarily validating the man that you're with or the person that you're with. It's affirming those great qualities and the great experiences that you guys are having together. Can you elaborate just a little bit more?
Yeah. So validation is more about self. Affirmation is more about other. And you need to have a combination, obviously, of both to work a relationship. That's why, like, if you know how to validate yourself, then someone affirming you is adding to you, which is what relationships are about. You're not waiting for them to complete you, you're waiting for them to add to you. Now, affirmation with men in particular, I personally believe is their number one love language. I believe that words of affirmation is their number one love language, even over physical touch. Men will always respond to being affirmed because that's the way that their brain is actually wired. And it's such a simple thing, but it is total man language. Something as simple as saying, I think it's great what you do at work, or I like your shirt, or you handled that really well. It doesn't always have to be like you're affirming their physical appearance. You affirm what they do. You affirm who they are. Men need to know that they are enough. They need to know that they are needed. And by affirming who they are, as their role, as the protector, as the provider, as the head, or whatever it is, you are essentially building them up to feel that they aren't failing. I think men really have to feel that who they are is enough first before they're able to fully be present in a relationship. Whereas women, we're like, I'm going to find a man to tell me who I'm enough kind of thing. And so it kind of really gets mixed up. And so if women can just slip affirmations in on a daily basis, whether it's your son, your brother, your father, whatever relationship that you want to build with the male, you're automatically going to get a more positive response just by affirming what they do and who they are. It's something that I do on a regular basis with my fiance. I affirm him several times a day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't affirm him, whether it's something like he's at work and I'm like, oh, you're such a good pilot, for example. Whether it's you look really handsome. And if you can identify moments when they're feeling less and then you step in with that affirmation, again, it's really going to build them up. And if you're feeding their love language, they're automatically going to want to continue to invest and prioritize you even more.
And I'm almost like visualizing another self-sabotage opportunity here for women is maybe they have been given wrong information about, oh, well, the man has to do all of the work. The man has to put in all of the effort. And there's some sense of like entitlement there.
Totally.
And giving your partner affirmations like these a little bit along the way of like affirming his purpose and his character are things that go a very, very long way in order to build that deeper connection and relationship between the two of you.
Yeah. It's really frustrating because entitlement is something that unfortunately is driving a lot of men away from women. And I see it happen all the time. I mean, one of the channels I coach for is almost 800,000 men. And they email me and I deal with them and they tell me like, but Renee, what's the point? They just expect everything nowadays without even investing much. And it's the, obviously the influence of feminism, role change. I'm not blaming anyone here. All I'm saying is that fundamentally speaking, it's always been the same. A relationship involves two people. Therefore, it involves teamwork. Therefore, both people have a role to play and they need to understand their role. Now, there are different roles in different stages of the relationship. For example, the beginning stage of a relationship where you're just dating each other and you're getting to know each other, it is more common for the man to pursue the woman and to prove to her that she needs him and to try and win her over. This is like the hunting period, okay? So having him romance, having him invest, having him initiate is a part of what actually makes him feel fulfilled in that stage, okay? That's why it's okay to step back a little bit and have a bit of mystery about yourself. This isn't about playing games. This is about understanding how men work. Now, there will come to a point where if you don't invest back, he will think that you are high maintenance or he'll think that you're not interested. So you have to give something back if you want something back in return anyway. That is just like the law of science, right? And more than anything, you should be wanting to invest into someone that is clearly wanting to invest into you for the right reasons. A healthy relationship isn't about who does more work than the other. A healthy relationship is who has to do work in this moment to produce the healthy results. Sometimes it's 50-50. Sometimes it's 90-10. Sometimes you have to carry the other person. Other times that other person carries you. Most of the time it should be that healthy balance of at least 50-50. In the beginning of a relationship, it might be 60-40 with the man doing a little bit more because that's what he needs. But then it gets to a point where it really kind of levels out. And it starts to be healthy. And then obviously you go through growth periods and changes in your relationship. So it will ebb and flow. But either way, a woman should be wanting to invest in her man because it's loving. It is an act of love. And whatever we give we get back in return as well. And so coming from a place of entitlement isn't empowerment. Entitlement comes from a place of self and selfishness. Empowerment comes from a place of self-love and love to give to somebody else as well. And there's two totally different outcomes for both those things.
I appreciate that so much. And it's definitely one of the reasons why I invited you back to be on the podcast, is because of that insight that you're providing with us right now. And I would love to go a little bit deeper into the phases of the relationship, because what you just described has paralleled my life and my next step in self-awareness. Okay. I bump up against this wall consistently in the last couple of years, where like 2 months, 3 months in, I ask for, whether it's the relationship or I ask for exclusivity. And I believe we're at the end of that first phase in the relationship that you're talking about. And so it sent me on a research kind of a thread into the psychobiological behavior of men and women.
Yeah.
And you have so much insight in this specific area by what you just described that I'd like to go deeper and ask you about that timing in the phases of being a high value man and a high value woman in the perception of the other person.
Yeah, it's funny that it's so true. And it really is around the 2 to 3 month mark. It is something that a lot of the relationships either progress and go forward after that, or they stop. And I get a lot of women going, oh, but you know, after 3 months, I thought we were going somewhere, and then he just like flaked out. Or the guys say, look, after 3 months, she realized that she didn't want to have anything to do with me. So it really is a 3 month mark. Now I'm someone, maybe because I'm a Christian, I'm very, I work in seasons. And I think that seasons really say a lot, because we've obviously got 4 seasons in a year. So 3 months of dating someone is a season, and a lot can happen in that season. And I say to every single one of my clients and every single one of my program, I say, you don't fully know someone's character ever, okay, because we're always changing and growing, but you should have a clear indication of their character intention at least over 3 months, okay, because you've gone through a season, you've had a decent amount of time together, and you've had enough time to see what they're consistent in, okay? But it's that phase where it kind of goes one way or the other. Now, what people do is, most of the time, especially nowadays, is they bring the relationship phase into the dating phase too soon. So they get familiar too soon. They go back to each other's houses too soon. They get intimate too soon, and they kind of relax too soon in, which they should be doing after that 3 month stage. And so they're thinking, oh, but it's been 3 months. Why isn't this going anywhere? And it's like, well, because you've brought something that should have been earned during this time too early into what was meant to be the courting phase, okay? And the phase where you're getting to know someone's character. Again, why do we get surprised that all of a sudden Bob has this massive red flag after 3 months? Because you're getting to know Bob, and it takes time to get to know Bob. It gets time to know him when he's not on his best behavior. What is he consistent in? What is his default character? And you're not going to know that in the first couple of dates, even the first 2 months, maybe 3 months. After then, you're really starting to get to know someone. Dating is an evaluation period. It is not a status. Relationships are status. I'm married, I'm divorced, I'm this and that. They're not like identities, they are statuses. So therefore, dating is something where you are moving through this process. It's meant to be progressing. There's meant to be movement. You're not meant to be stagnating. It's meant to lead to a relationship, or it's meant to end, one or the other. The problem is most of the time we're like, this is going to lead to a relationship. But it shouldn't always lead to a relationship, because if it's not the right person, then you don't want to be in a relationship with them, okay? But we get so disappointed because already we've put this expectation on it, plus we then acted out of that expectation with someone we don't really know, bringing that familiar phase into the courting phase, and then we're getting disappointed when it doesn't actually work out. There you go.
I mean, like, you hit it right on the head with the things that I've learned from psychobiological research. Stan Tatkin is a great doctor who I picked up a recent book of his and just digested and learned so much from that applies to this that you're talking about right now. And let's just say that, like, around that 2 to 3 month mark, I can see another opportunity for self-sabotage from one side or the other, where they might begin to start testing the character of the other person. Is that something that you find a common theme in your clients and in knowledge?
Especially you men. Men test women more than women will test men.
Really, tell me about that, because I would
Yeah,
love to learn about this.
they do. And I remember when my fiance tested me, and this is why it is so important for all you ladies out there listening to make sure that you know you first before you get to know another person, because that is what will help you withstand those tests. Because there are plenty of good guys out there, but they're looking for someone that is also able to match them. And if you're a high value woman and you want this high value man, I can tell you right now, he will put you through some tests. Now, whether he does it intentionally or not, most likely not. It's just something that they automatically do, because, you know, biologically speaking, they're actually looking for a primate. They're looking for someone that's able to match them. That's why they may do things like push a couple of buttons to see if they can get a reaction from you, or see how far they can push you with that boundary to see how you're going to respond. And your response is key to their next move. So again, if you are looking for validation within them, then your response is most likely going to be quite weak, and you're just going to turn into a doormat and just do whatever they want. They're not going to want you anymore. They'll either take advantage or they'll drop you like a hotcake. And I know that's really blunt, but that's the way it is. But if you know you, and you know what your worth is, and you know what you want, and you know what you desire, and you're able to set that standard and that boundary, then you give them, as I always say, a chance either to step up or step out.
I remember you said that in the very first interview that we did, and that stuck with me: step up or step out. And I'm chuckling and I'm laughing and I'm following along with you. I wish that we were like on split screen or like in the same person, because, or in the same place, because the video would show how much I'm enjoying this particular thread of the conversation. Because during this time, I can envision that one of the tests that men give women is about intimacy and sex.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to push that boundary to see where your character lies in that area. Like, it's possible why you don't ever hear from a guy again when you sleep with him on the first date.
Yes, it's true. It
Because
is so true.
boundary, and you didn't stand up against the high value person that one or the other is seeking. I totally agree with you that the patience and the delay in that instant gratification is necessary during the dating phase, because you don't know the character of the other person.
Mm.
And people, my friends, or some people that I speak to, they criticize me for that kind of, it's coming from a self-preservation place, but it's also coming from that self-awareness of like, I don't want to sleep with another person and then not hear from them.
No, because you create an attachment. I personally believe that there's no such thing as casual sex. I think that sex affects women differently as it does to men. As I say to any of my clients, the only time that you should be sleeping with someone is if you're prepared for the consequences after that. And if that consequence is you never hear from them again and you feel like crap, well, are you prepared for that? If that consequence is I get to spend the rest of my life with them because you're married to them, then you wait till marriage. I think that men testing women with sex is something that obviously men have a physical drive. Okay, their testosterone levels are like so much more than women's. They've got different parts of their brain that obviously think about sex more than women, and blah blah blah. Okay, we're wired differently. Now, they will have a natural instinct and a natural urge to want to be physical, because that's the way that men respond, okay? Whereas women will have a natural urge to want to be emotional. They'll want to be vulnerable. They want to be open. It's why, you know, the saying goes, men go looking for sex and find love. Women go looking for love and find sex. It's, some men will test women in a way of, okay, well, I'll see if I can sleep with her. And once they do, they realize, okay, well, she's not someone that is able to respect herself. She's not someone to able to put boundaries. So I don't see her as a high value woman, even if she is, you know, because he doesn't see her as someone that's able to put him in line and offer him that challenge. Now, I think a man who has a great character and a man that does have a right intention for a woman and wants to build a healthy relationship is a man that will still look for that challenge, but it won't necessarily be about the chase. It will be about, hang on a second, she makes me want to be a better man. She actually makes me think about this. She's someone that actually challenges myself because she is so firm in what she believes in. And the number one reason why a man will settle down and get on the knee and propose to a woman and be with her is because who he is with her makes him feel amazing, because she brings out the best in him, and he's like, oh, I need to have more of this girl because I feel invincible when I'm with her. So this is why, like, if we're able to hold off on sex, not only to assess someone's character first before we have all the chemicals get in there and confuse it for us, because that's what happens when we have sex. We release chemicals like dopamine and all this sort of stuff, and oxytocin, and it makes us go, oh, this is the feel-good chemical, right? Therefore, I must love him. I must feel this with him. And then it just becomes really confusing, where for men, what it does is it releases testosterone. Now they've had their release of testosterone and they actually pull back, okay? So all these sort of things. So it's almost like we have to know how to have him have that boost of testosterone with us and have that fulfillment of testosterone without actually being intimate with us and actually being inside us, right? And the way that we do that is we offer him a challenge where he feels like he can be the hero, okay? And it's not that we're a doormat, it's that we're understanding how men work, and we're responding in such a way that we're fulfilling his needs without compromising our own while we're still assessing his character.
Directly in line with the things that I've learned and the things that I've experienced. I really appreciate you saying it exactly that way, because it's digestible and it's so clairvoyant and it's easy to understand. So thank you very much. But it leads me to a question I was thinking of while we were chatting, is that in the first dating phase, where we're not yet bringing relationship into it, and one person is testing the other, and the other person is either not playing the game back or not playing into those tests, or is just basically oblivious to them at all. What's the dynamic there? What's going to happen with those two people seeing each other, getting to know each other, understanding who the other person is?
I think that it really depends on the person in the situation. I think if one person is testing, the other one's either oblivious or not playing into that test, it will basically bring about incompatibility. Like, a relationship will continue to develop if you feel like you're on the same page and you're both getting something from this. And if it arrives at a point where someone's testing too much, because basically it comes not out of I'm trying to evaluate your character, but rather I'm protecting myself from being hurt, that's when that person starts to self-sabotage. Now, if they're testing because they're trying to evaluate the other person's character, and that person who's being tested is like, well, I'm not going to do this and this, then that might come from a place of, well, I'm being self-entitled because I believe that I'm worthy of this, so therefore I'm not going to play your games, even if they're not games. So this is why having this healthy balance, and also, like, I can't stress enough how important it is to not just have self-awareness about yourself and your sex and gender, but also the person that you're dating. That's where you start to really get progress, because you're not just dating from a place of, oh, I'm self-aware, but I'm actually dating from a place, yes, I'm self-aware, but I'm also educated on men, or I'm educated on women. And because of that, I'm able to make calculated decisions with the two combined. And that's where you start to get movement. You go, okay, well, he's testing me right now because I know how men respond, because I'm aware of what men need, blah, blah, blah. I will respond in this way because I know it's not only setting my standard and my boundary, but it's also communicating something that I am of value to him.
And that, I believe, answers one of the most important questions that I was going to ask you today, is how do you approach that in an authentic way? And I think you basically just laid it out there, is like when you bring in self-awareness, which is a part of authenticity, and you bring in education, which is one of our core values, both me personally and in my businesses, then we're combining those two in an authentic way to further along the relationship, to move the ball down the field, if you like sports analogies.
Yeah, absolutely. And what it does is it gives you a sense, again, of control, because you're actually making control without feeling that the control that has to come from fear. I'm talking about control from a place of confidence, because you're making educated decisions here. You're not just shooting in the dark. You're not just like hoping for the best. You're not basing it on luck. You're actually going, well, I have a strategy to this to some degree. but still I have room to be able to allow for the magic at the same time.
So approaching what you want out of life in a logical and an emotional way will be a better strategy than just like playing the numbers game on the apps or going out
Yeah.
on as many first dates as you possibly can in order to like find the one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why my clients get like accelerated success is because they're no longer just shooting in the dark. They have some sort of strategy. And you think about anything, okay, you obviously run businesses, Dave. You have a strategy to make your business successful. Fitness, if you want to, like train a certain part of your body or do something, you have a strategy. If you want to get ahead in finances, you have some sort of strategy. Why wouldn't we apply strategy to our dating life? It's not like we're trying to fit everyone in a box. It's just about making educated, calculated, emotionally intelligent based decisions to cut out the crap, if we can cut out the crap, basically, right? So it makes sense. It's about working smart in love, not working hard.
Yeah, quality over quantity.
Mm,
You know,
every
and you were talking about being overwhelmed by choices.
time.
It's fantastic to have options in this world. Um, when our community is playing the numbers game of like going out on date after date after date, serial dating, or just like busying themselves with dates,
Mm,
that's the quantity side, and we're almost like can't see the forest for the trees.
mm.
Maybe we come across somebody quality in that time and we're just so busy with the rest of our lives, we have too many options that we can't bring in that how did you phrase it, the character before the commitment.
Mm. Yeah, we get a couple of things happen. We get choice fatigue, where we become overwhelmed because there's too many to choose from. We have fear of missing out because we know that there are other options out there. What if there's something better? What if there's something better? And if you give someone too many options, it makes it harder for them to make a decision. And the Latin word for decision means to cut off. And so if I've given you 50 options, I'm like, choose someone from this. And you're like, as opposed to I'm giving you 5, choose someone. You're probably going to find someone more out of the 5 than you are of the 50. It's the same when you go shopping for dresses or food or whatever. I'm terrible. If you give me too many options, I just become overwhelmed. I'm just like, no, I need like kind of my blinkers on. And it's what we have to have in dating. We need to have our blinkers on, and our blinkers should be those guidelines of, okay, what do I want? What do I need? And what are the core qualities that are needed to have and build a healthy relationship? And if no one aligns with that, then why are you entertaining them? It's like you can actually make dating really simple if you want to. You just obviously have to know how to do it in such a way where you minimize your options without reducing the quality of those options.
I was given really good, thank you so much. I mean, that was just an amazing continuation of where my brain was kind of like traveling towards. And I was given really good counsel from my counselor. And I was telling a story. This is probably a year and a half ago. The person who kind of like pushed me towards hosting the podcast was going through a tough time, and I understand that at all. But like anxiety kind of creates an ambivalence in making that choice,
Yeah.
where we just can't necessarily focus on one thing at one time when we're feeling that anxiousness from that snowball effect that you were talking about earlier.
Mm.
And we can certainly have grace and compassion for that person who's in an anxious state or in a terrible season of their life. But that's one of those things of like cut off, make a decision in order to improve your dating life, keep it simple, and move things forward in a healthy and authentic way that you were describing earlier.
Yeah. Definitely too many options produces a lot of anxiety, and that's where you've got to go, okay, it's okay to be, I guess, exposed to options, but when it comes to investing, that's when you need to limit your options. Who are you choosing to invest into? And you can't know someone's full potential if you've got your feet in 4 other guys' pockets, or it's going to be really hard to really get to know that person in front of you. And anxiety comes from a root of fear. And what anxiety is it's basically your brain going, I don't understand why she's freaking out about this. because the reality is that it doesn't actually seem life-threatening, because your brain's actually designed to keep you alive. Okay, that's what your brain does. So when you're driving in the car and all of a sudden the car pulls out, your brain will be like, oh, right? It'll be like, holy crap, I need to keep this person alive, sort of thing. So you go into that high stress and that high anxiety because it wants to switch on that adrenaline to keep you going so you can react quickly. And what happens is if we have anxiety in situations where there's not actually a life-threatening situation, for example, dating, a guy doesn't text back and all of a sudden we get anxiety, it's not life-threatening. Our brain's like, okay, I don't really understand this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to magnify that anxiety even more so that I can work out why she's actually feeling that she's going to die when I can see the situation is that she's not going to die. And so by magnifying, we either get panic attacks, or what we do is the brain magnifies it and goes, I still can't work out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going back under the layers and seeing other ways that she's reacted like this. What has that been based around? And that's where we start to come out through our fears, whether it's fear of what happened to us as a child, or fear of rejection, or fear of, something that happened in our past. Then our brain brings that all forward, which then again makes the anxiety even worse. Then we go, oh, well, he mustn't love me, or maybe like he's met someone else, when it could be like maybe he's on the toilet, or maybe his phone battery died, right? But we've convinced ourselves and we've assigned an agenda to his action based off our deep-rooted fears, essentially.
I think that's an amazing consensus and succinct way to kind of sum up what our modern dating life is like. We have so much information coming at us from so many different directions, and we can be in contact with somebody that we're dating in so many different ways, through social media and through text and through phone call. Okay, people don't call anymore.
True. So true. Yeah, no, it is. And we assume that if we, like, I get some people sometimes message me and email me and they're like, okay, but he saw my Snapchat, but he hasn't answered my Instagram, but then he's texted me on Facebook. And it's like, whoa, how many ways do you want him to communicate with you? Like, the man's communicating, like, it's something. It's just that because we've got these options, we assume that we have to have answers for all these options. And sometimes it's just not possible. And sometimes you shouldn't have answers from every single angle. But we're not okay with that, because we're not okay with the unknown. And that's why we have anxiety around it.
And that's why our brain creates stories that are oftentimes untrue.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we believe those stories, and then we act out of those stories. And unfortunately, that's where we self-sabotage.
Yeah, very well said. Well, before I let you go for the day, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
So the best way is probably to follow my YouTube channel, because I give so much, like, just obviously all my videos on there, full of heaps of value. It's just my name, Renee Slansky, or you can get in contact with me on my Instagram, Renee Slansky, just to keep it really simple. And through there, I've got free guides. I've got, my blog and all that sort of stuff. So you can download any of my free stuff that you want as well.
Awesome. If there's anything that we didn't get the chance to talk to today, or kind of want to expand on one of the topics that we did talk about today, what would that be?
Oh, so you've opened a Pandora's box. I think women could really benefit with knowing maybe just what to do in the initial stages of dating to reduce that anxiety and start to work out if this guy's worth really investing into, like really practical stuff. Yeah.
And a great place to start is that video that I'm going to put in the show notes and the blog post below, because coming from my perspective, I found a ton of value in it, understanding women a little bit better, but also men can use that, those standards is really what you're sharing in that video. What are the 10 standards that you need to have to make dating really simple, to be more successful with less anxiety?
Yeah. Oh, you want me to list the 10 now?
No. I want people to watch that video. So,
Yeah.
All right, guys, here's your action for the week.
Yes. What's your homework?
Just scroll down and watch this really quick, 5 to 10 minutes, something like that, of the 10 things that are going to help you attract a man that you want to be with, that is a high value man, and so that you can step up or step out.
Exactly. I still need to get that made into a slogan. Everyone's always like, I love that slogan. I'm like, I need to get it printed on a t-shirt.
Are you going to start an Etsy shop among other things that you
You
do?
you know what, I am not an Etsy shop, but I already do have packages that I developed for my clients, and I'm like, damn it, now I have to add to it with this t-shirt or some sort of calendar or something. So yes, that is in the works.
Okay. Well, what do you say in the next, well, probably right around a year from now, we follow up and I'll come crash your wedding in Greece. My daughter and I, she'll be my plus one.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations again on the wedding coming up this year and all the success that I've seen and grown with you in the last year since we talked. But really appreciate you taking the time today.
And thank you too. Thank you for having me again. It's been a pleasure.
It's my pleasure, Renee. Thank you.